Hello everyone, I'm Profi1322 and welcome to another GTA discussion video where we're going to be analysing and discussing and talking about the Special Vehicle Circuit update. As always, we get an update, I do all the vehicle testing and we get all the added content from an update, and then always at the end of the update I do one of these discussion videos where I kind of ramble on and talk about it, give my thoughts about it, what we saw, what was good, what was bad, all that kind of stuff. I do it for every single DLC and this is no different. I will point out, as always, that this is going to be one of those rambling videos. If you don't like that style of video from me, then don't bother to watch it. That's absolutely fine. I understand that it's not the sort of thing that everybody likes to watch, and I know that I repeat myself from time to time and ramble on, but it's just my style and it's just how I like to do these discussion videos. So if you're not interested in that sort of thing, click off. But for the rest of us, let's start talking about the Special Vehicle Circuit DLC, which I guess you could say it's kind of a mini update DLC. It's not a full-fledged DLC that we've seen like we've seen from the most recent updates to the game. Obviously we've gone through quite a period of significant updates with the officers and then the biker DLC, the cutting stunts obviously first as well, and then the special vehicles that came in with the office garages and all that kind of stuff. Very big DLC packs, game-changing packs that changed up the not only the game but the way we experience the game and the things that we can do with it. Massively improved the content creator over the last few months, so they've also broken it of course as well multiple times, but and there's still things that we would like to see from the content creator insofar as the dev kits that they've got, where you can remove lampposts and things like that that you can only access on PC via mods, and people get banned for doing that as well. But yeah, it's a lot better than what it was, the state of the game, in terms of say 6 months ago before we had the Cunning Stunt DLC. Now we've got a game that is significantly better. So I think I said it in one of the later DLC analysis videos that that would probably mark the end of the big DLCs from Rockstar, and we'll just start to focus on smaller additional add-ons, and this kind of plays into that a little bit. We'll see whether that is a thing in the future. Obviously we're going to be getting a gun running DLC, whatever that is, but that could just be a rework of sort of the things that we already have in the game, in the same way that the Special Vehicle Circuit DLC is a rework of the stuff that we got introduced in the previous DLC with the special vehicles, and it's kind of mixing in the content creator with the stunt racers, the Cunning Stunts DLC itself and the special vehicles, putting them together to create a DLC that it is fun. It does have some great additions to it, but it also lacks a little bit of significant stuff in there, in the same way as what we've seen from, like I say, the previous DLCs. So I mean, we'll talk about the cars first, and then we'll talk about any additional features later on. First of all, we got the GP1. It seems like an age ago now that we got the GP1, and that's just the way that it is again. Rockstar with their drip feeding of the content, they make, they release one car every week. The GP1, it was one of those things that it could have been so much better if they'd just given it a spoiler instead of the downforce value, and that absolutely tiny downforce value that it had, the lowest of any supercar. 1.25 meant that it was just pretty terrible in terms of lap time. It was never going to be that good, and it was just one of those things where if they'd just given it a spoiler, which would have made sense to a car like that, an older style supercar, isn't the kind of car that is going to create a lot of downforce. It's not like one of these brand new supercars that we see these days that have all these downforce aspects to them. It's not like a proper thoroughbred racing car as well. And it's just a shame that they went down that route, and I think some testing was done with the GP1 with a spoiler, obviously modded into single player in GTA, and it was a lot quicker with a spoiler, which is what we expected. So a shame that they did that, and their prevalence to add downforce as new vehicles is pretty strange, to be honest, and I don't see why they continue to do it, especially for a car like that. But yeah, not an awful lot to mention about it. It had some nice customization, and it's nice to have a McLaren F1, I guess, in the game. And I think the cars that we've had, apart from maybe the Ruston, have been vehicles that people have probably been asking for quite a lot. But yeah, just a shame that its performance wasn't as good as what it could have been. Onto the Ruston, and you know, it's one of those cars that's, I guess it's meant to be a track car, and I quite like it. I like the car itself. I just again wish that instead of having that 1.15 downforce value, which is as near as makes no difference, you might as well not bother having it. It makes no difference really to performance. You might as well have a spoiler on it, give it a bit more performance. Doesn't have to be the best sports car in the game, but it could at least be, you know, top 10, top 15 area, because it is meant to be a track car. It's meant to be a pretty quick vehicle. But you know, again, another sort of disappointment in terms of performance. The car itself, I feel like, is nice to have, and it's nice to have this different style of vehicle. But yeah, again, the performance aspect is a bit lacking, and I can, you know, when it comes to the whole argument that every single car doesn't have to be the best car in the game or the best car in the class, performance isn't necessarily the main driving force behind people's need to have a car, and that's fair enough. I can understand that people buy cars for various different reasons, but when introducing new vehicles to the game, that is, it's kind of an excuse or a way to make that vehicle or rebalance a class. It's a way to make the vehicle good, you know, having the vehicle be even somewhere on the pace of the top of the class. It doesn't have to be the best, nowhere near. I mean, it's good if vehicles aren't the new best in the class and just somewhere among the top, because then that creates a bit more balance and a lot more options. But every single new vehicle should at least be somewhat competitive. I don't see, it doesn't harm anybody to make a vehicle that is not too bad. It doesn't harm anybody to make the Ruston be in the top 10 of sports cars. It just means that that's another car that people who want to race can use. It doesn't take away from the people who want to buy it purely for looks, but then it just adds a larger amount of people who might want to buy it for the styling. So yeah, again, you know, a bit of a disappointment on the performance, similar to the GP1. The Ruston and the GP1, pretty much the exact same story across both the cars. They had downforce when they shouldn't have had, and the performance wasn't all that great because of that. And then the next two cars that we got were the Infernus and the Turismo. These cars are probably, they must be some of the most requested vehicles in the game. Certainly the Turismo Classic. The F40, the Ferrari F40, I never thought I would see the day when we would get that car in GTA, and it makes me so happy because what a car to have. Again, it's a bit of a shame that it's not in the sports class, really. I mean, both of these cars could be in the sports class and be competitive. The Turismo Classic would be right up there in terms of the top sports cars in the class in terms of lap time. You know, the Turismo Classic is way overpowered in the Sports Classics class, but that also does bring a little smile to my face thinking about the Sterling GT and what the Sterling GT did to the Sports Classics class. I really do wish that the Sports Classics class was just those old Sports Classics, not the Sterling, not the Infernus, not the Turismo. I much prefer racing with those old Sports Classics. They were a challenge to drive, they were slower, they were kind of what you expected from a Sports Classics class, and then the Sterling GT comes along and ruins it. Really, it was, obviously, as has been, well, you know, well discussed on this channel, the rear tyre on the back of the Sterling GT that caused that issue. If it wasn't for the rear tyre adding traction like a spoiler, we would have a balanced class without the Infernus and the Turismo anyway. So it was, you know, the Sterling GT does make sense in the Sports Classics class from that that perspective, but the introducing the Infernus and the Turismo, the Infernus first of all gave us the balance back to the Sports Classics class, but Rockstar played exactly the same trick that they always do, where they release a car that is somewhat on the pace, get everyone to buy it, and then release another car a week later down the line that's even quicker and get everybody to buy that. Now, it wasn't too much of a big deal in this instance because most people who are interested in cars were probably going to buy the Infernus or the Turismo anyway. You know, both of those cars are pretty iconic in terms of the GTA universe and just in the real world as well. You know, the Lamborghini Diablo was one of my favourite vehicles growing up as a kid, and the Ferrari F40, you don't need any extra information about that one and how iconic that car is. So in that respect, it's not too big of a deal, but I still wish that they would just release all the vehicles on release date of the DLC. I can understand why they don't, and it's pretty well bedded in now that they're going to continue this because they've been doing it for a while. But yeah, I just wish they would release everything like they used to do on the olden days of the DLCs. But yeah, the Turismo did to the Sterling GT what the Sterling GT did to the rest of the class. I think if the Turismo had a little bit less top speed, sort of in between the top speed of the Sterling GT and the Infernus, the class would be pretty well balanced again. The Sterling GT does seem like it is a little bit better in the corners than the Turismo Classic, which is in turn a little bit better in the corners than the Infernus. And if we had the Infernus having the higher top speed with the Turismo Classic in the middle and then the Sterling GT at the bottom, we would have a nice balance with the top three in the class. But as it is, the Turismo is basically combining the best of all the cars in the Sports Classics class. Still not going to be the best in terms of top speed, you still want the Z-Type for that, but the Turismo Classic is, you know, a pretty nice car to drive, and it does make Sports Classics races a little bit more interesting, I guess. So in addition to the 4 new vehicles, we also got the Duke of Death made available online, finally, after all this time, and the returning player bonus vehicles made available to non-returning players. And the one good thing that they did with this is that they actually gave a rebate in terms of money to the people who were returning players and had bought these vehicles. So the people who'd bought the Marshall and the Dodo Seaplane and the Blister Compact, the people who'd bought those vehicles in the past, they gave the money back to them once they made them free to returning players. So the way that it works now is if you're a returning player from 360 or PS3, you get to have those vehicles for free, and if you'd previously bought them, you get the money back for that. And that's really good. It's nice that they've been able to do that. I'm very impressed with them actively giving away money like that, because that's not their style and that hasn't been the way that they've done things previously. But it is only fair that they do that. If they're going to make exclusive content available to everybody, there should still be an inherent benefit to having access to that exclusive content originally. And obviously the benefit here is if you had that exclusive content, you do get it for free now, and those people who didn't play the game on old gen and didn't get this exclusive content can still access it, but they've got to pay, and I think that's fair enough. So it's nice to have those available for everybody. You know, the Dukes, for example, a lot of people were disappointed that they couldn't have the regular Dukes, but now it's completely useless in muscle car races, but it's still nice that people can have that for those people who didn't have the game on old gen. And yeah, the Duke of Death, it's been a long time since the Duke of Death has been in the game, and we've wanted it in online for quite a while, and it's the same story as what they did with the single player vehicles like the Pisswasser Dominator, the Redwood Gauntlet. They finally made those available, and there was really no reason that the Duke of Death shouldn't have been available. You know, you could kind of understand it in the early days of the game, before we had the Kuruma, before we had all these armoured vehicles and insurgents and all this kind of stuff. Before we had all that, yeah, you could say that the Duke of Death might have been a little bit overpowered and too strong to be in the online world. But since the introduction of all those vehicles, and GTA Online itself has become a very different place with the introduction of all those vehicles, Ruiner 2000s, Rocket Baltics, all this kind of weird and wonderful stuff. With all those being in, there was no reason to keep the Duke of Death out of online. So that is now available, and that's great to see. We've only got one vehicle left that is still unavailable, and I would imagine that by the time we get the next DLC, if it's another smaller DLC like this one, we'll probably they'll probably make that vehicle available as well. That's obviously the Go-Go Monkey Blister, the Blister Compact race car, if you like. I imagine they'll also make that available as well. because that's the only one that is currently locked off still to single player, if you like. But yeah, it's good that they're opening up with that. I wish they would open up a little bit more with what we can use, certainly for races. If we could use emergency vehicles, commercial vehicles, all the classes, all the vehicles from all the classes, I don't see the reason why we can't store police vehicles still after all this time. Even if they had a special, you know, military or police, I mean Warstock is the military side, but if they had a old, you know, used police vehicles website, that kind of thing, where they could sell police vehicles, the cruisers and the transporters and things like that, why not? You know, they would get some money from that as well if they make them available to buy. That's more shark card sales for them. So I really don't understand why we can't freely buy or store police vehicles and things like that even now. But maybe we'll see it in the future, maybe we won't. Maybe it'll be a change for the next version of the game, who knows. But yeah, it's nice to see them opening up with that and allowing different vehicles available. We just, you know, more please, essentially. Now when it comes to changes to the game, we've had all the usual kind of stuff when it comes to adversary modes. And I don't really like to talk too much about those because I don't focus on them all that much. The tiny races thing is the most recent addition, and really, you know, how long is that going to last? You're going to play it once or twice or whatever, and it's not going to be the sort of thing that you're going to continue playing all the time because it is an adversary mode. And it seems like these adversary modes are the way that Rockstar kind of keeps people interested in the game by funneling everybody to these game modes one week, and then the next week they funnel everybody to the next game mode that they create. But they're very, very fleeting. You know, how many people are playing some of the very early adversary modes now and searching for it? And that's one of the main issues with the GTA lobby system, that you just can't find races, you can't find jobs. If you're on your own and you don't have a crew of people who you're playing with regularly, I can't imagine the experience that you have trying to find anything to play. And they really, really do need to, even if they went back to GTA 4's lobby system for the next installment of the game, they really do need to make big changes to the lobby system of GTA, because I think that's part of the reason why they keep bringing out these adversary modes, to give people something to actually play, because otherwise the population of the game is spread so thinly across all these different game modes that you can barely find anything to race. Obviously, to play, sorry. When it comes to races, you've got sort of stunt races, and that's pretty much all you've got, really. Rockstar created stunt races, the premium races as well, and that's it, because you know, you've got so many people maybe loading up their own jobs or loading up all these different kinds of jobs. The ability to get a full lobby in just random play without the help of a crew, or, you know, streaming like I do, is very, very difficult, and they definitely need to sort of sort that out for the next GTA. One thing that I do want to mention that was quite nice of a change is when you buy the Turismo and the Unfairness, obviously those cars aren't affected by downforce, so adding a spoiler to those vehicles does increase traction like everything else. When you buy those and they come with the spoiler, the default spoiler does actually add traction, which is a very, very nice change to see. All other vehicles in the game, when you buy a car, say for example the Kuruma, when you buy the Kuruma, it comes with a spoiler by default. There's no way to remove the spoiler, but that default spoiler doesn't increase traction. When you go to the second option of the spoiler category, and it's basically exactly the same spoiler just in a different colour, that gives you the traction bonus that you get from all the other spoilers as well. But the default spoilers would never increase traction. Now what they've done is they've made the no spoiler option the very top option in Los Santos Customs, and that is the one that doesn't increase traction, and the second option is the one that you get the car with by default. So it's not sort of the default state of the vehicle, that is still with no spoiler. You can take the spoiler off and it basically makes sense. You can take the spoiler off and it will remove the extra traction bonus, or you can keep the default spoiler or any other spoiler and it will give you the same amount of traction increase. So it's nice, that tiny little change to improve that, and it makes more sense. And I like it when Rockstar do things and the game makes sense, because it's very often that it doesn't make sense. There's so many things that Rockstar do that just don't make sense, and for a long time we've been saying all these little changes like that. So it's nice to see them implement that, and I think, you know, there's so many cars that have this issue with spoilers and all these different types of little niggly issues that we have with the game that are never ever going to be fixed. We've got to accept that now the game is pretty much, it is what it is. All these issues that we have, they're not going to be fixed, they're not going to be changed in any way, and we just have to deal with it and hope that even if we see a slight improvement, like with the Infernus and the Turismo and their default spoilers, we hope that that slight improvement will continue on to the next version of the game, GTA 6 and whatever online offering that is. We just got to hope that any improvements that we see in the late stages of this game are going to make their way into the next game and create a better experience for the next game, because to have GTA 6's online mode still be focused on adversary game modes, still have this terrible lobby system, still have cars where you can add spoilers and it doesn't increase the traction, still have old vehicles with downforce that make no difference whatsoever. If the next game has all that as well, then it's just going to be repeating the same old rubbish. So hopefully there will be an improvement to the next game, and that whenever it comes out. I'm not into the business of speculating about the next game or anything. We know it will come eventually, but it's still probably a few years down the line. We just got to hope that the next game is a bit better and takes all these issues that we've had and we've been vocal about into account, even if they're not getting fixed for this GTA. So it wouldn't be a DLC analysis video without talking about bugs and glitches and things that they introduce. It seems like they have this long list of patch notes with every DLC that gives us all these different fixes that they've made, and they introduce hundreds more bits that are broken. The creator has issues. We obviously saw the pretty large problem with the Infernus Classic, which turned out to be an even bigger problem from earlier on down the line that went unnoticed. They did fix that relatively quickly, which is pretty good, but they also broke lots of other things, and like I said, that's just kind of how the game is now. It's almost certain that the people still working on GTA Online are a small team in comparison to what they probably started with and what developed the game. The people who developed GTA 5 and GTA Online itself and all the big updates for it probably left now. They're probably working on the next GTA or the next Rockstar game, Red Dead, or any other offerings that Rockstar might give. So we've got to kind of expect this. It's an old game now. There's going to be a very small team working on it, and although it's a shame that that's how it is, that is just how it is. It's not one of these persistent online games that are going to have a big team working on it all the time. Rockstar have other focuses that they're going to be sending their employees to sort out, and we just got to accept that. The game is never going to be perfect, like I said, and hopefully that anything that they do break, they will fix. But we can look back to how things are broken on old gen still, in terms of the T20. The spoiler doesn't increase its traction like it does on new gen, and we can look to old gen and see that once it stops, they're not going to focus on it anymore. So as soon as the updates and the support for GTA stops, we are going to be left with it in whatever state that it's in, and we just got to hope that whatever team is currently working on the game do a good enough job to fix the vast majority of issues that we have. But like I say, with every DLC, it seems like they add yet more issues and more problems and bugs to the game. But yeah, that is what it is. It is my DLC analysis for the Special Vehicles circuit. Sorry if it was a little bit more rambly than usual. I mean, that's going some to be even more rambly than what I usually do. But yeah, I just, there wasn't an awful lot to this DLC to really talk about. I think it was one of those smaller DLCs that it doesn't have an awful lot of content, and it's just, again, trying to keep people interested from week to week, to keep people spending the shark card money, when really the game is no different overall as a big game experience like we've seen from the previous DLCs. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all so much for watching. Obviously, let me know your thoughts down below about what you think about this DLC in particular and the state of the game right now, and what you might want to see before it eventually stops getting support. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.